because I've heard this repeatedly, and we did a little work on this question about the practice of this committee to hold full committee hearings on a bill before after it's been introduced. So we went back and took a look at the last two Congresses under Chairman Graham and Chairman Grassley. 49 bills marked up in committee during that period of time. By our count, six of the 49 had a full committee hearing. One had a subcommittee hearing in that Congress before they marked it up. We'll put a list of those bills on the record. Also, I hope it's clear, any member of this committee can attend and participate in any subcommittee hearing. Our subcommittees are holding excellent hearings, and I've encouraged the chairs and ranking members of those subcommittees to take the ball and run, and they've done an extraordinary job. Furthermore, my office routinely receives requests from offices of both sides of the aisles to discharge and hotline bills from the committee without either a hearing or a committee markup. This is common practice by chairs of both parties. So I'm all for hearings, but what I've tried to do is empower subcommittees to carry the ball. It all doesn't have to come back to the full committee, and my honor and glory to chair the hearing. I attended those meetings, and I hope others will as well. So, Senator Cornyn, please.
If I can briefly respond, Mr. Chairman, all bills are not alike. And there are a few bills that entail the complexity and the possibility or probability of unintended consequences more than a bill like this. As has been pointed out, this is a huge part of our economy, and the companies that are being targeted are significant employers of Americans. And I just think, most of us are generalists by nature. We're not necessarily experts. I know that varies from senator to senator, but there are questions that I think we need to ask of the experts that need to be fully aired. And yes, you're exactly right. Frequently, there are bills that get hotlined and passed by unanimous consent that are not controversial. This is not one of those bills. And I would say that I don't believe a subcommittee hearing is a substitute for a full committee hearing. As you know, many of us are members of multiple committees and frequently have to entail conflicts where the committees that we actually sit on in full committees have simultaneous hearings or markups. And so to suggest that a subcommittee hearing is a substitute for a full committee hearing in a complex area like this, let's just say you and I disagree.
Senator Durbin, just one sentence, since I'm the chair of this subcommittee. Both Senator Durbin and Senator Grassley, who have incredibly busy schedules, have found the time to come to the subcommittee hearings because they know these bills are important over and over again. And I think that we have done an excellent job chairing these hearings. Several members, including yesterday, off committee have come to the hearings. And again, I'm looking at some of your bills, Senator Cornyn, involving prescription drugs, a huge part of our economy, that have gone through without any hearing at all.
Well, I'm going to say something on this,
I find this just another argument by the tech companies, another way to delay. They've delayed successfully for decades, which is why we haven't done anything. So suddenly we have come up with this made-up thing when, in fact, when the Republicans were in charge of the 115, the committee considered more than 40 bills without first holding a hearing in the full committee or subcommittee. To the contrary, we've had this App Store hearing went on for nearly 3 hours. We've actually done our work, and I am proud of it.
Mr. Chairman, since my name was mentioned, if I can just respond briefly. The preeminent issue for our nation in terms of our economy and national security is the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China is a known serial stealer of our intellectual property. They also vacuum up all of the personal data that they can possibly get through cyber attacks on the Office of Personnel Management and on our individual devices, and collect that data and then apply artificial intelligence, in some cases, to target their own people with surveillance and to engage in human rights abuses for ethnic groups like the Uyghurs. This is not a trivial issue. And if by requiring open access to the the app store of a company that does a better job than most of screening those apps for malware and possibility of intrusion by foreign countries in our devices in order to spy on us. That is not a trivial matter. And I'm not suggesting that Senator Klobuchar does anything other than an excellent job as chairman of the subcommittee, but her concerns are not necessarily my concerns. And the 29 million people I represent are not given an opportunity to participate through my participation in a full committee hearing.
So I'm not.
And I don't have time to come to every subcommittee hearing on the 3 full committees that I sit on, and I think that's a red herring.
I don't want to interrupt this exchange. It's important that we speak at our piece at this moment. I do want to tell you that the security briefing that starts at 11 o'clock about the situation involving Russia and Ukraine is one that many of us are very intensely interested in. But we're not going to stop this hearing for it. We're going to keep going if we go till whatever. So I want to say I'm going to recognize members who asked for recognition, and if you have amendments, please offer them. Senator Kennedy and then Senator Lee.
Well, I want to respond to the exchange between my 2 good friends, Senator Cornyn and Senator Klobuchar. I think Senator Cornyn is right. I think it's obvious. All bills aren't different. I mean, all bills aren't the same, rather. Bills are different. Now, I support the committee efforts. I'm glad to see us moving on these issues. The bill last week, there'll probably be another one this week. But they're very complex. They involve a huge part of our economy. We need to get them right. I am growing tired of being told if I ask a question, I'm in the pocket of big tech. It gets old. It's disrespectful. Technically, you're right, Mr. Chairman. We have done it all different ways. But to repeat what Senator Cornyn said, bills are different. All bills are not alike. And I strongly believe if we want to pass this legislation on the floor of the Senate, we need to do 2 things. Number 1, we need to make sure that everybody has input and has their say. And if somebody disagrees with their idea, the response is not, you're in the pocket of big tech. It could be a fair question. No, I wish I knew well, strike that. And I think the best way to accomplish that is a full hearing. I do. Number 2, the worry that many of my colleagues have on both sides of the aisle is that this bill is going to get rammed down our throats on the floor of the Senate and that we're not going to be able to offer amendments. And I've read the amendments that are proposed today. Some of them I'm going to vote against. Some I'm going to vote for because I think they strengthen the bill. So I just wanted to go of record on that, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, it's been my experience in the Senate that all bills are not alike, and mine are particularly good.
I noticed that, Senator. I agree with you.
Senator Lee, and then I'd like to open it to the amendment process. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Tillis, did you? Senator Lee.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank Senator Blackburn and Senator Blumenthal for their work on this issue and for their willingness and that of their staffs to be open and consider revisions to the bill. I've really appreciated the bipartisan engagement on this issue. It's an issue that's important to me. It's one in which I've personally and deeply engaged on for well over a year now, and Senator Klobuchar and I had a hearing on some related topics last year. It was illuminating, bringing to light a number of problems in the area. And it's one of the reasons why I've for some time now been raising issues with the anti-competitive conduct of the big tech companies. Anti-competitive conduct that manifests itself to a fairly pronounced degree in this particular industry, where we've got a couple of companies that are really wielding undue market power. They're wielding an extraordinarily large amount of market power that in some cases goes almost unrivaled. This shows up in various forms. Sometimes it shows up in the form of forcing app developers to use only their payment systems. Sometimes it shows up in the form of concerning allegations involving retaliatory conduct from app developers like Tile and Match, which is one of the things that came up at our antitrust subcommittee hearings last week. And then you've got things like the apparently immaculately coordinated takedown of Parler by both app stores within just a few hours of each other. Because I find things like these so concerning, and because we tend to have these two siloed monopolies operating with the insulation of high switching costs from one mobile device to another, I support the goals of the legislation. I did have concerns with the original bill. The manager's amendment has resolved a number of my concerns. I would like to continue working with the bill sponsors on a few outstanding issues. And it's my understanding that they've committed to continuing to work with me in good faith as we proceed to the floor, and I'm grateful for that. And that's why I'd like to speak about one of my amendments, but I will not offer it at this point. My amendment would refine the affirmative defense section so that defendants are not put in a position of having to prove a negative by establishing that the claimed defense was quote-unquote non-protectual. But however, I do think it's important to not let defendants off with pretextual excuses. So I would allow the plaintiff to rebut any affirmative defense by proving in the affirmative that it was pretextual. That is more consistent with how affirmative defenses work and ought to work. In any event, I understand that Senators Blumenthal and Blackburn are willing to commit to working with me on this to address this and other issues as we move forward with it. And so with that commitment, I'm going to support the legislation, support reporting the legislation out of committee today. Thank you.
The bill is open to amendment. Does anyone offer an amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Tillis.
Thank you. I've got three amendments. I'm going to go in quick order. The first one is 22260. The amendment changes the definition of covered companies. The bill currently applies to 50 million users or greater. What we're trying to do here is target conduct for, jointly for those businesses who jointly control an online software store and either an operating system or an in-app payment system to better target anti-competitive behavior. It also changes the threshold from 50 million to 1 million users. I think if we're trying to identify future Googles, remember Google didn't exist 21 years ago, or roughly 21 years ago, that we should look a little bit more beyond the handful of companies that would be covered by the bill. I also just want to thank Senator Blumenthal and Senator Blackburn, who's been working on this issue for years. I'm going to support the manager's amendment, but I would also appreciate your support on this amendment.
Anyone speaking in reference to this amendment? Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm sympathetic to the goal of the amendment, which is to stop anti-competitive conduct, but unfortunately, this amendment really changes the definition of covered company by reducing the user threshold from 50 million to 1 million. That really upends the focus of the bill, which is on the monopolistic gatekeepers, which have more than 50 million users. I really fear it will dilute the standard, in fact, make it unclear. If Amazon or Facebook create a dominant app store that can undercut rivals and impose extractive fees on consumers, they should play by the rules. And I'd be happy to work with Senator Tillis on modifying the manager's amendment, hopefully the bill, as appropriate as we have done with Senator Lee and others on his concerns, but I urge my colleagues to defeat this amendment.
If no one else seeks recognition, the question is on the adoption of the amendment. Senator, do you wish a roll call?
Yes, please.
The clerk will call the roll on the amendment offered by Senator Tillis.
Mr. Leahy? No. Mrs. Feinstein? Mr. Whitehouse? No. Ms. Klobuchar? No. Mr. Coons? Mr. Blumenthal?
No.
Mr. Brownhouse? No. Mr. Booker? No. Mr. Padilla? No. Mr. Ossoff? No. Mr. Grassley? No. Mr. Graham? No. Mr. Cornyn? Aye. Mr. Lee? No. Mr. Cruz? No. Mr. Sachs? I got a problem. Mr. Hawley? No. Mr. Cotton? No. Mr. Kennedy?
No.
Mr. Tillis?
Aye.